Welcome to the Pineapple Couch with Brob. Today is Thursday, January 14th. This is episode 74. And folks, we said we were going to have some NBA stuff for you later in the week. And then James Harden gets traded to the Nets. So we're going to go all into that today, as well as some other NBA stuff, Urban Meyer, and then quickly talk about some football again. But to do all of this, I am joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Josh Bilker. Josh, how you doing, my friend?
I'm great. It's like a really quiet day so far. I just finished up. I just watched Chernobyl on HBO, which is very good. I strongly
It's
recommend to
uplifting.
anybody. Yeah, it's very depressing. Is the one thing, but was very good. I finished that right before I hopped on, but I'm absolutely ready to talk basketball because
Hmm.
holy shit, we haven't talked since the season started, so
Yeah,
it's
we
gonna
haven't.
be whew, a lot of shit to talk about.
Yeah. So, before we get into all of that, I want to quickly say thank you to everyone who listens, subscribes, sends in questions, voicemails like our guy Stephen Young. We'll get to a voicemail from him. And I also want to let everyone know that we are putting these full episodes on YouTube now. So if you're like Josh and I and you like to kind of have that, I don't know, I like throwing on podcasts on YouTube and just kind of have them going. So if you're like us in that way, you can check us out on YouTube. It'll usually come out a bit after when the pod drops, just because of the uploading time. But hopefully, we get faster about that as we go along. So check out the Pineapple Couch on YouTube. Let's get into it, folks. James Harden, Fat Man, Fat James, Harden Claus, sent to Brooklyn in a giant blockbuster deal. I'm going to break it down for all of you because there's so much going on here. Basically, the Rockets, they're going to get rid of James Harden. And in return for all of that, the Rockets get Victor Oladipo, Dante Exum, Kirkus, Kirk, Karooks,
Crooks.
Karooks, a 2021 pick swap, a 2022 first round pick, a 2022 first round pick, a 2023 pick swap, a 2024 first round pick, a 2025 pick swap, a 2026 first round pick, and a 2027 pick swap, which is all with the Nets. And if that sounds familiar, it's because the Nets did this about 10 years ago for Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett and Darren Williams. And then so basically the Brooklyn Nets, they get obviously James Harden, and for that they lose Karis LeVert, Jared Allen, Taurean Prince, and then obviously all those draft picks. The Pacers, they lose Victor Oladipo in a second round pick, but end up getting Karis LeVert from the Rockets with the 2023 second round pick as well. And then the Cavs had to get involved for whatever reason. So the Cavs, they get rid of Dante Exum, a first round pick that's owned by the Bucks, and a second round pick for they get Jared Allen and Taurean Prince. I know that was a lot, so let's try to go into it bit by bit. Obviously, Josh, the thing that jumps out to us here is James Harden is
Oh,
now a
I thought you were gonna
Brooklyn Net.
say Karis LeVert is a Pacer. Is what you
I
were
mean,
gonna
that
open.
we'll get to that. I'm equally as excited about that. But James Harden, a Brooklyn Net, initial reaction from Josh, go when you saw the news.
All right, so that's 8 first round picks in total. Yes,
If
that's the
you,
number with
it's
the
split
swaps.
with the swap, so it's like I think it's
Four
five.
four
Well,
unprotected
yeah,
and then four
unprotected too.
others. Yeah, unprotected picks, which could be disastrous, and then four.
2026.
Yeah, I mean, who knows who's going to be on that team depending on if
Mm-hmm.
their big three still there. So that's obviously it's a lot. I mean, like I think a lot of people are claiming how unfair this trade is that the Nets get, like another asset and whatnot. Let me just address this part of it because I saw a lot of takes on Twitter talking about how the league is rigged and the fact that they brought up the Chris Paul trade from what was it 2012 when he went to Clippers instead because uh,
David Stern rigged that trade.
David Stern, yeah. But so the reason why that trade didn't happen was because David Stern owned a part of the Pelicans was the
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Yep,
And
because
so
they were
that's
changing
why,
owners.
yes. And so the
It
NBA
was
took,
actually Dan Gilbert who did that. It was because the
yeah,
owners, because there's no owner, so David Stern and the owners had that control, and Dan
yes,
Gilbert was the one who, because he was pissed off about But sorry to interrupt. Keep going.
exactly. And so that's something that exactly Right. So that's why that didn't happen. It's not because like the league thought it was too unfair and or whatever and
Hmm.
they didn't do it. It was because they actually had a stake in that. And I'm sure if that was still the case in this trade, it probably wouldn't happen either because people just don't want to see other teams get 3 mega superstars. So right off the bat, that's why that didn't happen if anybody was wondering or thought this was unfair.
Hmm.
But honestly, people still, I don't know, what's the consensus that you're seeing as far as like, is this still like, do people think this is a for sure title team, like that good still?
Well, I think that there's a lot of things you like why I think this is fascinating. I don't know. One, there's not obviously the outcry of anger like with the Warriors getting Kevin Durant
Yeah.
because obviously the Warriors were a 73 win team, but there's so many ways to look at this trade. Sorry if I'm rambling. It's just so fucking weird to me in a
It
couple
is.
ways because it's like, are the Nets now the favorite in the Eastern Conference? Yes. But I still kind of had the Nets as the favorite before this because I think Kevin
Exactly.
Durant is Kevin Durant still, and that makes that. But does this I guess for one way is some sort of Kyrie Irving insurance for the Nets if Kyrie is going AWOL. But then the other thing you have to think about with this Nets team is they gave up so much depth, which is one of the things that in this season so far, that second unit by the Nets has been able to extend leads and has been pretty deadly. But if you think about it in the playoffs, when you shorten that rotation, is that too important? I don't know. I think if you're the Nets, you kind of seems like they kind of had to do it. I don't understand why it doesn't seem like Mike D'Antoni would be
Yeah.
wanting Harden to come in and stuff like that.
There's no
So,
way the coaching staff wanted Harden. I can't see it. And we were talking about this last night. I think the only people that wanted this trade to happen, it had to have been KD, maybe Kyrie, who even knows what he thinks.
mhm,
But more importantly, ownership for sure wanted to bring in the third guy and for
yeah.
sure to lock up a title somehow, I guess. I still just here so here's my problem I think with this team now is obviously you build your team to one of two ways. With depth or with star power, right? Is
Hmm.
beyond the star power that you already have to make a title, right? And so it's a trade-off. You can't have depth and a third star, really. That's what I read
Hmm.
on it. It was on Zach Lowe wrote an article actually that I was reading last night, and it was fascinating about that. And obviously, they're sacrificing all their depth. Their only other players on this team are DeAndre Jordan, Joe Allen, and
Joe Harris, you
Joe
mean?
Harris. Sorry, yeah,
I
Joe
like the
Allen.
comp. Joe Allen, that's a cool
Yeah.
combo of the two. And then they got
Joe.
Something Brown, whatever. Is it Bruce Brown?
Yes, Bruce Brown, Timothy Lualu Cabarro, who's not fantastic. I
Hmm.
watched him last night. Jeff Green and Landry Shamet. I mean, that literally is their whole team beyond those guys, beyond the big three.
Hmm. And
And
so
that's
what they're making the gamble that they're in the playoffs. That's all they're going to need. And honestly, based on what we've seen in the playoffs over the past however long, it's hard to say they're wrong.
yeah,
Really,
no, no,
that core could do it. I do think that they are the favorite in the East, but it's also not to the point where if a team like the Celtics took a run at them, the 76ers look good, even the Bucks, it wouldn't be like, oh my God, the Warriors lost, like that Warriors shot, like, oh my God, the Warriors didn't make the finals, something like that, you know? I but I do think they are the favorite to go to the finals out of the East. And now the Lakers versus the Nets is I kind of think what the two favorites would be. I still would favor the Lakers. The Lakers just look really good. But
yeah,
again, what the Nets are doing is they're betting on the star power. And it's weird to say this because this trade's obviously giant, but I don't even think it, yes, it matters, but Kevin Durant in the finals is what's going to matter.
exactly. I agree. Like without Kevin Durant, this team is nothing for sure. Because on top of that, so not only right is Kevin Durant obviously your best player offensively, like that
Hmm.
between all three of those guys, like very clearly. He's also gonna have to be the best defender on that team,
Yep.
which
He can
is
do that, though. He
he can.
can
He
do
can.
that.
And that's not like I don't mean to say that he's not a good defender or anything like that,
Hmm.
but he's going to be getting the tough assignments every playoff series. He's going to have to guard Giannis probably if
Tatum.
they, when they play the Bucks. Tatum, exactly. I Embiid, probably that's going to go to DeAndre Jordan, but probably Tobias Harris. I mean, he could probably shut down
Think
Tobias
about like a
Harris.
Bam Adebayo, maybe.
Bam Adebayo, all these guys, Jimmy Butler, he might have to guard too. And that's like Durant's good enough. He's one of the best players in NBA history, and he's still good enough on defense to be able to make a solid enough run. But that's asking so much of Durant, considering he just came off of a Achilles tear, and
His
is the
first
thing.
back to back was last night.
Exactly, and he still looks great, and it's great, and you kind of forget that he was hurt, but you just don't want to put that kind of stress on him still, just in case. I would still be taking this very carefully. I don't know how
Mm-hmm.
many basketball years Durant has at this level, to be fair, because he is 32, but
Mm-hmm.
and so maybe you're just trying to maximize this window, but
Yeah.
that's
Can I
scary.
can I counterpoint?
Sure.
So the defense thing, I think you're hitting the nail on the head. Yes, Kevin Durant has to assume a way bigger defensive role. But also though, if you think about it, in the playoffs, he was going to have to do this regardless. Losing Jared Allen is really the biggest hit there because he's just a good rim defender. But what they're betting on in terms of Harden and maybe preserving Kevin Durant is that Harden in the regular season can take that offensive load. And so KD's not having to
That's an interesting take.
maybe they're trying for that switch off, and maybe they're betting that they can get away with KD not having to take all the tough assignments in the regular season because it's the regular season, and then saving that for the playoffs while keeping KD somewhat fresh because Harden can play every game and does not get hurt, and he's very durable. So
That being said, though, we saw this. This is gonna hurt me because I'm gonna bring up the Clippers. We saw last year how chemistry on the court and the fact that Kawhi Leonard and Paul George only played like 40 games together, and just they looked out of sync when it came time to the playoffs. They just weren't there and just didn't have that, and because they just didn't practice enough together and were comfortable with it. And that's one thing I'm worried about too. Is that I don't know if this big three I mentioned again yesterday. I texted you this. Is that I don't know how many games all three of these guys are going to play together. And that scares me too. On top of that, is when it gets down to the playoffs. And again, they're good enough that it might not matter. But I thought the same thing about the Clippers last year.
yeah,
Obviously, the three combined players here in the Nets are better than Paul George and Kawhi Leonard.
yeah. I'm not even thinking about Kyrie Irving. With that comparison, it's just like what the Nets are betting on is that the offensive firepower of KD and James Harden is I would say is a lot more than PG and Kawhi, like you said. And so that two-man game, we'll see how much they remember playing in OKC together. That was quite a long time ago, and James Harden has completely changed his play style if you think about it since then.
That's the other thing too.
So that'll be
he's
interesting.
Gonna have to relearn how to play basketball correctly again, probably when he's playing with other people that can play basketball again. So that's I feel Joe Harris might be really feeling really good right now because he's going to get the most open threes.
Shots.
Yeah, that Joe Harris. Because who the fuck are you going to defend?
Yeah, okay.
That's terrifying.
I got a hot take, or not a hot take. Listen to this. I think so you remember I shared a tweet with you yesterday, and I think I retweeted this if people want to go look it up on Twitter. I forget who it was from, but basically the tweet was about how Kyrie was pissed about Steve Nash. And then at the end of it, it said how basically him and Kevin Durant have been very, very distant, which shocking that this has happened already. But what I envision happening with this Nets team is that basically Durant's going to replace Kyrie with Harden, and that'll be his buddy. And we are about to witness an all-time meltdown from Kyrie Irving.
I'm excited for it.
Dude, Stephen A. Smith told him to retire. I think
he
that's
might.
Hilarious, but
he honestly might.
I saw something where it was like I think he's been on contract for the Nets for 80-something games, and he's played for like 27 of them.
Yeah, that's about right. He was always injury prone. He's
not, and he's just not with him not playing this much and everything that goes into everything. Kyrie Irving's not a max player, I don't think, and it's. When you're talking about that Zach Lowe article with it being you have to sacrifice the depth to have the third star, God damn, it would have been so much better if they could just somehow got rid of Kyrie and had Harden.
I know.
And gotten Harden because that with having those young guys because that's perfect in my opinion. And now because if that were to been the case, I think that made the Nets the favorite. If that happened, that would have made them the favorite. Now I think because of the lack of depth.
Yeah.
And now, who the fuck are they going to throw at Anthony Davis? I mean, yes, you'll throw Durant at him, but then who's guarding LeBron?
You're just
It's
gonna it's the buyout guys is gonna have to, and that's never a good sign either. Is that's gonna have to complete this roster? I think is you need
Jeff Green,
one.
maybe.
Yeah, honestly, Jeff Green, I'm not
That's
gonna.
that's the story of Jeff Green. What you're about to say is the story of Jeff Green. You're about to say he could do it. You never know.
I that's
That is
right.
Jeff Green.
He's,
That is
but
Jeff Green.
that's I think he's surprisingly like he's past that point, right? Where like he's just gonna be a role player. He's solid enough that he's not gonna be having these flashes of brilliance anymore. He's just gonna hit threes, play center. Apparently, I think he came into the league at small forward, which is ridiculous. But that was partially because he was on the Rockets, to be fair. But he actually will probably have to play center for this roster at like a lot of points, since the only other guy is DeAndre Jordan, and he's not a very good defender anymore. Or he's a pretty good rim runner, though. Still, so that's good for him.
That just speaks volumes of if you're a Nets fan, you're betting on the Nets to win it all this year. That just sucks that Jeff Green is in the equation.
I like Jeff Green. I think as like the seventh guy on the court, he's not bad. That's
I don't know.
It's
I
fair.
think,
It's scary. You're right, though. It's still scary, but I still think like he's still solid, regardless of it. I think he's probably 33 as well or something.
yeah.
But let's talk about Kyrie, because let's
Yeah, I
break
was
this
about to
down
say.
completely.
Can I hit
So
you with a question to start it off and then we break it
yeah,
down?
absolutely.
On the spot, in 3 years, is Kyrie Irving in the NBA?
Yes, but not.
I say no.
You might
And
be
I could
right.
be, I might could
He's
be
still just
completely
young.
wrong. Kyrie could win like 2 chips with the Nets, and I could look like the biggest idiot. And I'm not a Knicks fan, for the record. All our friends out there on YouTube, I'm just wearing this Ewing jersey because it's sweet. But right now, it literally looks like I'm a disgruntled New York Knicks fan hating the Nets. That's not true. I love KD. So continue, Josh. Take us down this hole. Where
Well, so
you say yes
here's
that he will, but yeah.
Well, so here's the thing, right? So obviously he's having problems right now, first of all. But we haven't heard from him since this Harden trade's happened, and I'm sure that's going to happen soon. But maybe there's a chance maybe he just completely changes tune, gets back in line. Maybe the Nets office is like, listen, we got Harden because we don't have faith in you. Like, prove us otherwise. I don't necessarily know playing hardball with Kyrie Irving is going to work, because he could just
Who
completely
knows?
fuck you.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's just the thing is like, there's a chance he just completely gets in line and just is that guy from here on out, because he's really bipolar with how he reacts to things. It seems like lately,
Yeah.
throughout his entire career, kind of just the whole fact that he turned on LeBron after Cleveland winning a
I
title is still
saw, oh,
wild.
really quick. I saw this tweet that was unbelievable. It was basically like Kyrie didn't want to be Robin to LeBron's Batman, but now he's Alfred because of KD and Harden, or Batman and Robin.
That's really good. That's really fucking no. Here's the thing is that's the worst part is too. Obviously, the chemistry and court fit issues are a thing, but like, I think they all three think they're Batman. They're all three.
There's one Batman legitimately.
It's Durant,
I mean,
obviously.
Durant, like the thing is that's going to be crazy about this, Josh, is I was thinking about this. I think Kevin Durant's the third best basketball player I've ever seen in my life,
Okay,
maybe higher. And
that's
it's
fair.
just like, you got to think that to a way he's going to figure this all out.
That's a good
That's kind
point.
of what I keep going back to with, like, I think about all the dysfunction and it's like, oh God, oh Kyrie this, oh Harden's fat. But then it's just like, KD before he got injured with the Warriors was the best player in the world. Not he was better than LeBron at that point. That is
He's
not
better
me
than
trying to talk
Kawhi
shit
in that
on
whole.
LeBron. That
Yeah,
he was on fucking fire.
yeah.
And
He was
now,
averaging like 35 a game in the
yeah,
playoffs.
and it
Insane.
looks like that is back. They're obviously gonna preserve it, not do a ton right now, but that's why with the Nets, I say all this stuff about Kyrie and Harden. It just comes back to it, Josh. It's like, fuck, if KD, it's just KD. KD can win you. He's that good. KD could beat the LeBron and Anthony Davis Lakers. KD could beat like a well-oiled Clippers team. He could beat the 76ers. He could beat Milwaukee. He's that guy. He's a fucking killer.
You're right.
So
You're absolutely right.
that's just what it all comes down to. And it's kind of repetitive maybe, but it's just, he is the smoothest. I'm like, he's the best scorer I've ever seen.
Yeah,
How it's just
you're
breath.
absolutely right.
His pull-up threes in the finals and just how he does that. It's maybe the most pretty shot I've ever seen in basketball. I put it up where those Dirk fadeaways, just how
Phases.
KD
Yeah.
so confidently could do that. But that was a tangent.
Well,
Get us back on.
last thing on Durant though is the thing that also worries me is he seems like he's the coolest headed guy out of the three of them. So the one thing I'm worried about too is he might. I mean, maybe you're right about the whole regular season thing where he just kind of takes a back seat, but I think he might just naturally take a back seat to just like let these two guys kind of figure it out because he's not one of those. He's not like he is an alpha personality, but he's not like a in your face alpha. I guess he's like a kind of more of a Kawhi, like lead by example type thing, going to kill you quietly. And that's something that might scare me is that he might just take a backseat role, even though he's the best player on that team.
I think something though to counter is just in that last season or the last two seasons when he was on the Warriors, something clicked in him, and he was like, I'm the baddest dude on the planet.
Yeah,
Like he was
no,
with that offense where he sometimes didn't have to do much, but he's just the baddest dude on the planet. And so I think from a competitive edge, he has like maybe if this was Thunder KD, younger KD, maybe he does this. I think this KD is like he has an
that's a good point.
edge. He's a killer. So
That's a
we'll
good
see.
point.
Let's talk about.
And
Oh, sorry.
one more thing. I just want to credit your tweet because it was fantastic. The that Durant, you would rather play with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson 100 times out of 100 than even while Klay's injured over Kyrie and Harden. So it
It's
still
wild
just
to me.
doesn't make any sense.
It's wild because what the perception of why people gave KD shit in Golden State. It's like, oh my God, look at the situation and you're surrounded by Steph and Clay. Of course you can do that. So he leaves to, I guess, evade that. And now it's like you got Harden and Kyrie, so you're on a super team. So you're still gonna catch that flack from the people who hate you because the people who hate you hate you. They're not. It's not gonna change.
Exactly.
And now it's like, wow, you really could have just been with the Warriors this whole time and made that. I do think that Warriors franchise was a dynasty, but I'm talking like even more so it could have been. And hey, maybe it's not. We'll get to that later.
All right. So what do you want? Kyrie now? You want to just quickly go over some of the Kyrie stories?
So I mean, he's at his sister's
No.
birthday party, or what
It
are you
started.
thinking?
Sorry, it started with him just sitting games for no reason, and maybe
Because
it
didn't
was
want to
because
play.
he just didn't want to play, and that was a weird thing too because they were like national televised games too. On
Well,
top of
yeah,
that, it was a TNT
and what he
game.
did is he like vaguely talked about it too. So you were like, he kind of let people like, oh, is he sitting because of the dumb shit that went on at the Capitol? Is it whatever? Because he's so vague and you just never know what he's thinking. So nope.
Yeah,
And then you finally find out like, why weren't you playing? He's like, I just didn't want it. It's
didn't
like
want to play.
you've played 27 games out of 80 games possible for the Nets. I would be going fucking crazy if I'm a Nets fan. I don't know. He's just a mental head case, and I mean I no ill will. I hope he figures it out because it's just I don't know. Maybe I'm completely wrong, and Kyrie is gonna come light it up. Prove me wrong, Kyrie. I actually kind of don't want him to though because I still am very mad at him for hitting that shot against the Warriors. So maybe that's what it is. Let's go to James Harden's former team, the Rockets, and their involvement in this. And we should mention at the start of this, one, I just love John Wall and Boogie Cousins because boy, did they fucking hate James Harden. Boogie was pissed. He's like, I didn't even come here to play with this guy. I came here to play with John Wall. It was that Harden was questioned a ton. His leadership, obviously, his maturity. The Rockets did not hold back in how they felt. He handled this situation, which I mean, I can't really blame them. John Walls looks like he's worked like hell to get back, and he looks pretty good. And you got guys like Boogie, and you got team guys who are coming in to win and want to do something. Rookie head coach and Steven Silas, who I think is going to be good. And Harden doesn't show up on time, shows up out of shape, COVID shit, says he's done everything he can when he's literally been handed the keys to this franchise for 7 years, and everything that's wrong with the Rockets was created by James Harden. It's not surprising though. James Harden, like, what? Are we surprised he's acting like this? No. So, on the other hand, though, let's think about the Rockets. The Rockets end up getting LeVert, but then ship him
Yeah.
ship him to Indiana. And so now what you're looking at with the Rockets is they have you got John Wall, Victor Oladipo, you got Eric Gordon, you got Christian Wood, you got DeMarcus Cousins. I'm forgetting someone who's good.
PJ Tucker still they have
PJ
in
Tucker,
there.
yes. Yes. I mean, that's not in the
He's
Eastern
also like
Conference, that's a playoff
36.
team. Eastern Conference, that's a potential playoff team. Western
Yeah.
Conference, I think it's kind of cool. It's not going to be
Uh,
good, but let's see. Oladipo at one point was really good.
so I think the Houston Rockets are the modern rehabilitation center now for all these older stars, because you have all these people trying to prove their value still. It's kind of like
Mhm.
it's a halfway home for these kind of
It's what
NBA
the
stars.
Nets used to be.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
an
yeah.
exact swap.
So it's like you have John Wall, who's like 31, 32, still trying to prove that he's still got something left in the tank. They still have him on the books for another 2 years, I think, something like that. DeMarcus Cousins obviously has had horrific injuries back to back. I think he had like 3 back to back, like season-ending injuries
Yep.
almost. And then Oladipo too, who's still trying to prove that he was the player that he was before his. I forgot what his injury was exactly, but and then on top of that, you have Christian Wood as a rising star potentially that's averaging 20 points per game right now. So they restarted basically, and I'm wondering if they're following suit from OKC potentially, and just kind of holding players and being okay with not being good for a while, and just kind of jettisoning them out for draft picks when contenders might need them for the next couple of years. And I think they fired D'Antoni, right? Obviously, and they brought in Silas, and this is going to be nice because we can finally get a true impression of Silas, because the problem was with that Harden regime was still kind of left over with obviously just James Harden.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like it's just a case of like, we should have gotten rid of Harden from the get-go just to kind of create a toxic-free environment just from what you guys were trying to do, because clearly the ownership and general manager had a different idea than what Harden wanted them to be, I guess. But they
Yeah,
gave it a
and
shot with Harden.
I think when you think about the Rockets too, it's like I don't necessarily think they're going to be that good, but I do think they're going to be fun to watch, and I am excited now. Like I think I texted you this yesterday. Like I don't hate the Rockets anymore.
Yeah, I don't
Like
either.
I think they're going to be kind of fun to watch. I'm excited to see what Silas is going to do, and I do think we're going to see some fun stuff. I'm excited to see what Christian Wood can do, and John Wall is not done yet. That's just what
No,
he looks good. So and
to have the
Boogie
keys
that's
against
going to
the
be tough,
offense
but
too,
yeah,
I think is going to be great as
and he's
well.
more
John Wall's
mature
going to
with
get
it
to
this time. So we'll see
right,
what
and
an
he's
Elderman
got
can
his
do.
buddy
Yeah.
DeMarcus
So
Cousins. And
no,
I
you
was
go.
just going to say,
You go.
yeah, the Oladipo piece of it I think is also really interesting, because he clearly wanted out of Indiana, but from what he was saying in the bubble, I think we might have talked about this in the
Yep.
past, where
He denied it
shouting
all.
at other teams to trade me or to trade for him, which is nice though. Again, that the fact that Indiana kind of just took him aside and kind of was just like, look, we'll find you a destination, but just like
But shut up.
you're hurting us right now. But like, just can you just be quiet for a little bit, just see what happens and whatnot. We'll
Yeah.
get you the first offer we get that you
Hmm.
agree with. We'll get you there. And credit to them, they did. And the fact is, they didn't really. I don't think this is a good segue. Are we done with the Rockets? Because this was a good
Yeah.
segue
Are we gonna
into
talking Pacers?
Pacers. Yeah,
Yeah.
because they got Karis LeVert, and I think that's a really nice fit with them, because now it's very clearly Sabonis's team. They're running with Sabonis full force. It's not this still Oladipo still trying to prove himself. He's been good this season. He's looked really good. Still a great defender. Still a high level scorer. But I think LeVert kind of has a better a kind of a better floor, I feel like, than Oladipo in a sense at this point.
Yeah, and I think
Oladipo definitely has a
I
better
think he has a
ceiling.
higher ceiling for the future though. Levert, I think
I
we've seen peak
He's
Oladipo. I
younger.
don't think. Yeah, and I think what it does cool with this Levert move, first of all, um, I thought that was highway robbery. Like Levert for Oladipo, with Oladipo being expiring and just a young Karis Levert. I would way rather have that. But
Absolutely.
the trio, or I guess they have four because of Turner, but the Brogdon, Levert, Sabonis. That is exciting. That's an NBA League Pass team, and Miles Turner's been playing better this year. So the Pacers, I think, are a fun 5 to 8 maybe Eastern Conference team, maybe 6 to 8. But I like the young core they have there. I don't know. It's like when you see all these teams having these young cores and it all gets traded away and all this sort of stuff. It is kind of cool to see this. Even though Brogdon and LeVert obviously weren't drafted in Indiana, I do like that trio of them with Sabonis and then also Miles Turner.
Yeah, I do too, because they're a great defensive team, obviously, with those guys. And then LeVert gives you offense, which is they needed kind of instant offense from a guy, and that's just going to be LeVert, the
Yep.
irrational confident scorer. Irrational, or what, irrational rationality. I forget what it is, but they have that one, that one score that just always feels like he's never taken a bad shot. And
Yeah.
you kind of need one of those guys, I feel like, just for a decent chance in the NBA to like have a complete team. That's like Tyler Hero in Miami, for instance, I guess is a good comp. And LeVert's great for them. I think it's a really good fit. I think he's probably, I don't know why I always try to like come up with the player's age, but I'm guessing he's around 24, 23
Yeah, that's
maybe.
what I'd say.
And yeah, like you said, Oladipo wasn't going to re-sign with them. There was absolutely no way. So they got something back for it, which is it's a lot, especially because Indiana's not going to get any free agents ever. Just going to extend their rookie deals basically every chance they get. I think we both love this trade for Indiana. Definitely, I think they're better from it.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think Oladipo is a better player though, but I do like what LeVert can
Maybe
do.
I'm just so high on Karis LeVert.
I
just
like
love
him a
him.
lot.
So
I really do is the thing, but I still think Oladipo is fantastic still.
okay.
If he can
Great.
get back to his all-star level.